bit easy to forget everything over Easter, especially because I haven't seen you for 2 weeks because we've missed the Good Friday as well. So it's been quite a while since I've seen you. Just to let you know, today we're recording the session, and it's not, you're not being recorded, it's just me, the camera's aimed at me, not you.
So if you could keep the chatter down because it's recording.
Yes. So the reason we're recording is that those people who should have had a lecture on Monday or Tuesday this week missed out for the public holidays. So we're recording it and we'll post this online for those students to watch. I just wanted you, to just go over next week. Next week at 8:30 it's your first BBC session. So I'm just going to remind you now, because it's a while since I've seen you, how to actually get onto that BBC session. So on the home screen it looks like this. You just click here where it says BBC, two birds sort of chatting together. Click on that. Scroll down and it actually says Natural Sciences, Friday at 8:30. So you click there. And then you click on Join Session. So that's what you do next week. So there's 3 steps to get to it. When you click Join Session, it can take a few minutes for the first time to download. And you have to wait. A little box comes up saying downloading session, and you just have to wait for that to do its thing. And if it's the first BBC you've ever had, I'd maybe give yourself a good 20 minutes to get online. So you don't have the travelling time because you haven't got to be here by 8:30, but it can take a while to connect. So that's just a heads up. But if you're a bit late to the session, don't worry about it. You know, you'll still get in. Because we do get people joining in late, don't we, Helen? Helen's here today just to do a bit of recording, but she's got to leave later and she'll just leave the camera running. Okay, so I'll just put this on to present. Just going to go over last week's session, which was actually a BBC, but because yours was the Good Friday, you had to join a session earlier in the week, and that was really difficult for you because I think most of you had a class when I told you it was on. Now the session has been posted under resources online. Have you looked at that? Anybody seen it yet? One person? I'll show you where it is. Just for, I should just show you where that is. I haven't just turned it off, have I? No. Let's go back. Okay, going back here. Hi, can you sit on your number, your group number? So, if you want to watch last week's BBC, because it's really actually very important information because it's all about Module 2. If you haven't watched it yet, click on Resources on the home page. Go down here, get rid of that, and click on Week 4, BBC session, Introduction to Module 2 and Assignment 2, and you can watch it. You can put it onto full screen, you can go through the slides, you can listen to somebody talking. So if you haven't yet done that, I recommend you do because it's going to set you up for what you've got to do next for this paper. But we haven't got time to do that today, so I'm going to set you a bit of a challenge in your groups to get you talking and to get you started off. I always find this group a bit sleepy at 8:30.
Are they?
A bit like me really, but I have to wake up because I'm the lecturer. So what I'd like you to do in your groups is, on Moodle, try and find the answers to these questions. So all of this was covered last week. It's also covered somewhere else on Moodle. Does anybody know where it would be covered? Information about Assessment 2. Anybody know on Moodle where it would be covered? Have a quick look on your devices, see who can find it first, and we'll share that information with the other groups, and then you can answer the questions together in your groups. So who knows the Moodle page well enough to be able to log on and find where you get that information from? Yes, brilliant. Where is it?
I can't even fully remember where I went to, but in the resources and then arrow and go across.
Okay, so you've got to the BBC there. Okay, so there's 2 places where this information is. One is that I just showed you how to get into the BBC for last week under resources. That's the first place. There's another place too. Where else would it be? Have a look at the tabs on the side of the home page. See which one you think is going to point you towards the information for assessment 2. Yeah.
Is the descriptor under the assignments?
Yeah. So the assignments button on the left, click on that and then click on the left for assessment 2 descriptor, and the same information is there. So there's 2 places to find it. Now in your groups I'd like you to actually talk to each other and answer these questions. See who can get there fastest. As your group are not here yet, do you want to join in here, or the group behind you has only got 2? And we'll just keep this going round as well. Anybody standing late can sign. You've done it? You've done it on your page? How long do you reckon they'll need, Helen? 5 minutes or more?
5. 5 is good.
Okay, 5 minutes. See if you can find the information. And you might want to all write it down because it's really important information.
Oh, okay.
And it's in her name, so it's doing 2.
How many is it?
What is the essay question?
2.
2.
750. Yeah. Subject to this, are you not allowed to submit an essay?
Hi there. Do you remember your group number?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here it is, yeah.
So the last one, was it 2 weeks? Okay, so then the next one's
Almost a whole group missing.
Is that the same numbers as last
I
time?
can't see that.
Yeah.
We got 12 to 15 last time. People didn't play. So we get the same today.
I had people turning up at 9 o'clock yesterday. Traffic. And children.
Yeah. I know this is quite a young group. Most
Oh,
of them.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Most of them are under about 24, I'd say.
How many group members?
At least this little one know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Welcome. What number are you? What group number? Okay, that's it. Do you want to go and join your... Who was it? You? Do you want to go and... Oh, yeah, no. Yes. We're just doing a quiz. We'll work together. What number are you on now? So we haven't done that yet. But we're answering the questions on the screen. So you can get these guys out and get them start with. What's your name? Emma. Right. Hi there. Is there only 2 of you? Yeah, there's only 1 of us. You should know. And if you look on my portfolio and look at all group members and see who else is in it. It's because I can't remember the names. Yeah. I might send a message out to this group. What I've missed today. We can maybe get them to view this because at least they've been recorded. Okay, what question number are you on in your group?
Oh.
In your head, okay. Are you all making notes or you know where to find this information? You do now? Do you know the answers to all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is it worth like making notes or do you think you're going to remember it?
I think I was.
And you've obviously done that.
Gosh.
Yeah. Can you make sure the person next to you knows what's okay.
At least I came today.
I'm in this group, and it says I'm in this group, but I can't see the group. So, can we go to my group? And I'm not there.
Okay.
And it says I'm in there.
But it says you're in the group.
And my name's Craig, so I thought it'd be Craig, so
It might be because you're not the karaoke because a lot of people put nicknames on there.
wasn't that just stupid?
No, but it's because there's so many hundreds of people on the forum and it's used by Unitec. That's one
Is that
of the
right?
problems.
Oh,
It's
okay.
used by people all over
Okay, cool. Didn't know that.
in the health and protection services. So that site's so huge.
So
And
you
try
never
to
changed
find
my
people.
nickname.
Cancer users up here, just your name up there. Although it
My
must
full
be-
name.
Yeah, you're all wrong. If you go there to the middle of the
By the way, this is
what I would do right now, click on this email, because a few people have been covered, we've never had it before this semester, but this time I've had about 5 minutes testing on the you didn't get an email you know, like,
For module one,
yeah,
I
was that
get
email
constant emails from this group. I just ignore them all to prepare questions.
if they're from me,
Yeah.
don't ignore
I
them.
don't think I ignored the other ones. I never received an email
Okay,
directly
so-
to me.
You must have been able to see your work then, because
Okay.
I emailed people but couldn't see their work,
Okay.
so that's not too much of a problem.
Well, I did get an email at the start saying I hadn't done much, but like I just drafted it.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
no,
good.
Few-
I was
few
hoping
for me.
that
I
it
have
was
seen,
one or
but the
two
people who are viewing,
Yeah.
because they don't share the page ones.
Yeah, I had shared the page, I just hadn't done
Oh,
it.
yes.
So I get email saying right now.
Yeah, email them right now. Now, how are your table getting on? Have you answered all those questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know now where to find it. Feel more confident about module 2, what you've got to do. Okay, how about this table?
Yeah, well, I've been tested.
You know what you're doing? Yeah. And this table, feel like you know the answers now? Okay, I'll just give you a couple more minutes. I'm going to use this one. There's a couple minutes to start getting this through.
It's really bad when you do that.
Okay.
I'm gonna go home and get changed. Yeah, maybe it's no.
Okay, 2 more minutes.
Well, it seems I think just like doing details and the real
If you do it, I will go to the first one.
Well, yeah, well, the first one.
If you have finished your group, can you click on module 2 and have a very quick look through it, really quick, so that you can familiarise yourself with the topic titles.
How many years do we use for each activity?
There's not really a guide on the words connected. There's only a guide for the actual essays.
So like,
Some would be more than some would be
yeah, but it would be more than just an essay or essay, whatever, way less. Like maybe even like 2 or 3 paragraphs for each
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Based on what you've been asked to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like you start engaging with the topic and then you choose the ones you want to look at more deeply, so do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and then you go away and do your research on those two. Okay.
So the exhibition is just touching on.
Yeah, it's obviously breaking it up. But yeah, there's no teaching now, that's why the content is possible. If, well, it's a good idea, it's always good practice, so I will, but, we're not going to get our marks or anything as such.
Yeah.
But we might like, if you just put and paste the whole thing, that's really bad. Because, we want you to get into good practice, so, yeah, so it's good essential because you get marks for the reference in there, but you don't get marks for your say. When we look at your My Portfolio, it's more to see if you're engaging with it, you get the marks for. Okay.
The difference between an assignment and a
The same. But the assignments can vary. You know, it could be different type, like it could be asked to write a report or do a presentation. But an essay is a type of assignment. Okay.
Discussion.
Yeah. If you're not sure, if you haven't ever written an essay.
No, I
Okay,
did,
yeah, because
yeah, I'm like, not with the news, just putting it in, I'm not going to the essentials on them, so like.
because some people haven't written other people manage to get through school days and like that. And the format for university is quite a lot higher, but then you just enjoy it, you know, at school level. So, yeah, people can consider those things sign up for people. You're doing amazingly well. I think you're like engaging with the technology more.
Well,
You're really like,
just look at this assignment though, and it's just like the research and everything, finding the places to do the research and leaders what I have to do.
okay.
Really? Because
Ask the librarian.
yeah, I'm just going to go to work later.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble finding
sorry,
stuff
I'm
on either.
Yeah, the libraries, and you've also got workshops about how to find stuff.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
because again, that sort of thing is
Yeah, I started it and then I tried to do this information stuff and I just, I gave up, so I thought I need to go to the library.
too much out there.
Yeah,
And the
bit more
library will
relevant
teach you how to find
what we're
stuff
saying.
fast, which is what you need. Okay, let's move on. Hopefully, has anybody got any questions about that, or are you all feeling a bit more confident now about module 1, module 2? You know what you're doing. Going round, I feel like people are a bit more aware now of where to find the information. Okay, now we're going to move on to today's lecture. That was really a summary of last week's, but I was aware that you sort of missed out a bit, so I wanted to just push that in. Okay, back to the top. So today, we're going to talk about some of the topics that come up. So what we're going to do in the lectures between now and when you hand in assignment 2, we're going to look at some of the topics that come up in more detail. And the other thing we'll do is one day we'll look at some exemplars of assignment 2 and you can mark them in your groups and we'll discuss them. So you get an idea as well. And you get to get grips with the marking rubric when you do that exercise, so it's really worth being here for that. So today we're going to look at something called cultural safety and 2 or 3 of the other topics that come up. Cultural safety, anybody ever heard this phrase? It's a sort of a New Zealand term. It was created in New Zealand, this phrase. Anybody ever heard of it even or come across it in their previous jobs or work life or... No? I hadn't heard of it before I was teaching on this job and had to find out about it so I could teach. Because I was teaching on the pathway into this faculty, I needed to know what this was and start teaching it. So I did some research and I realised that it's something that we all have to practice in our everyday lives if we live in a multicultural world, which we do here. And really it's just about in your groups, in wherever you're working, whether or not it's in your group here or whether or not it's in your professional life, about treating each other with respect. That's really what it's about. So if you are working somewhere where you're dealing with customers or clients coming in, it's about how to deal with those people if they're from totally different cultures to you. And it came about because of New Zealand being a bicultural nation, that this really came about. But we'll move on and talk about that more in a minute. So today's session, learning objectives. We need to understand what it means to actually practice something called cultural safety. How to apply it in your future career. This applies to people in our faculty, which is social and health sciences. Because more or natural sciences people, we're going to try and give it a bit of a slant to make it a bit more relevant to what you're doing or your career paths. It crosses over into all of these activities, so we're actually going to touch on 4 of the activities today in what we're going to talk about. So we're just literally opening up what these topics are about, so that when you go into them, you'll already have some prior knowledge of what we're talking about. So definition of cultural safety, it's quite long. It was something that was developed here in New Zealand by the Nursing Council in respect of the Treaty of Waitangi. But it's now been adopted all over the world by different health services because it's such good practice. So nurses all over the world have to learn about this now, in places like the UK, Australia, the US. So if you want to quickly read that definition. Okay, definitions are quite hard to come to terms with because they're a bit sort of theoretical. In short, it means that all human beings receive professional services that take into account all that makes them unique, or about focusing on your client or customer. It may mean in your group work here at Unitec, about the way you treat each other in your group. It's like developing a sort of professional identity, if you like. And for some of you, you'll already be practicing this sort of thing anyway. For some of you, it may be something you need to learn if you're quite young and you've come straight from school and you haven't had much work experience yet. So, began in New Zealand. It's really about power dynamics and also about self-awareness. So it's knowing yourself, understanding your own background and your own culture, and understanding that it's different to somebody else's, but that doesn't mean that it's better. And so, therefore, once you understand that, and you understand that about yourself, the power imbalances shift. So if you start thinking about places where you might have felt a power dynamics going on. Things like, and I think this is harder in New Zealand actually than in the UK to identify, but things like, say if you're a patient in a hospital and you're feeling really sick and you're lying in bed and then the doctor comes round on their ward rounds, and they usually bring a few other people with them, they're never on their own. So they're accompanied by a few people who are all professionals, and they start talking about your case. And then maybe give you a few offhand comments at the end about your condition. And you're just lying there thinking, I just want to get better and go home. But they don't really say that much. Has anybody ever been in that situation where they've been visiting someone or they've been the patient in hospital? One person, 2, yeah? A few nodding. I think there's a power thing going on there, and the doctors need to be aware, and some of them are better at this than others, but they need to be aware that they're in a position of power there, and because you feel really sick, you are more powerless than you would normally be. Because when you feel sick, you don't really feel like being very assertive for yourself. So there is a power thing there. Or even if you're a nurse and you're looking after somebody in hospital, you're the healthy one. You know, and you can control quite a lot of what's happening to that patient. And so you've got the power. Now, thinking about the sort of careers that you're thinking about going into outside hospitals, that's just a good example for power relations. I want you to just have a quick think about how you might, you know, working in the fields that you're working with, how you might end up in a position of power and somebody else would feel less powerful. Is there any ideas? Yeah?
Not necessarily with humans, but if you're working with animal welfare, you've got a lot of people pretty much invoice for
Yeah.
them, so
Yeah.
more power than they even would.
Very much. Yeah. Animal welfare is a really good one.
And I want to train dogs, and I've taken my dogs to a trainer.
Yeah.
We know puppies, and that power thing is so real because you feel so stupid because you've got this naughty little dog. And the trainer sometimes does kind of talk over you
Oh,
as
okay.
if your dog is naughty instead of a dog that needs to be trained. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it might have just been that one particular girl, and she was quite young herself.
Yeah.
But I did feel that then that she didn't engage
Yeah.
the people with their dogs very well, and she was sort of,
Mm.
and she had a dog with her that was really well trained, so it made us all feel
Yeah, you feel that sort of inferior.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But that's
a good
why
one.
we were there,
Yeah.
to teach our dogs.
Yeah, you go there to learn, and so you need the person to be more aware.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was
A lot of it is people skills as well. She's obviously really good with dogs,
Mm.
but she needs to be good with people too if she's doing that job.
Yeah.
Anything else that you can think of? Other examples? What about vets and vet nurses who are working with animals? Is there anybody doing the vet nursing type programme? No? I imagine that that would be similar. If you go in with a sick pet, you feel upset anyway and emotional, and you're in that emotional state like taking your child to the doctor. And so then the people working in that practice need to be aware of your emotions, don't they?
I went to a big one and I didn't like him, and I changed
Yeah.
to one that year. I didn't feel like he actually gave a shit about my animal because
Yeah.
he was so, yeah.
You
he
do
was
need,
so different.
even vets need to have that people skills.
Mm.
Like, they might be really good with animals, but in order to be a vet, you need to be good with people too. You need that bedside manner, because the people are upset if they've taken their pet to you, whatever type of pet it is. I've had that experience too with a vet. He's cheap, so I still go back to him, but I'm sort of aware that that's going to happen. So yeah, we'll try and apply this a bit more to natural sciences as we go along. So it's about understanding the rights of others as a professional and understanding their differences, but still being able to work with them without judging people. I think unconsciously we sometimes do that because they're different to us and they might make us feel, I don't know, maybe because people are sometimes different to us, we can judge them without realising, just because we don't understand their differences. And we need to be aware of that in ourselves, and it's totally normal and human, but the more we are aware of it, the better our people skills are going to be. So any of these factors might be something that you might want to consider as part of cultural safety. And Auckland is one of the most diverse cities in the world now, which is just amazing because population-wise it's not that big as a city goes. It is for New Zealand, but as worldwide it's quite small population numbers, but it is one of the most diverse. So we need to become more and more aware of this as Aucklanders and New Zealanders, I think. Okay, so I don't know, you're going to need to, first of all, talk about your careers with each other. So in your groups, just share what your career goal is, you know, why you're here, why you're doing this course, what's your career path. And then see if you can link in, and you might need to help each other with this, how important this might be. Okay? So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do this, it shouldn't take long. It's mainly talking about why you're doing this course and what your career paths are. Okay, and I'll come and join in with your groups then. So, careers. What's your career path?
I don't really have a concrete career path as of yet. I'm just sort of
Really
going
well.
for a ride. We'll see.
You'll say, yeah.
To be honest.
But this is obviously your interest and
Yeah,
passion.
so
Yeah.
I pursue this because it's something that
Okay. And career services is really good, so when you get to that stage, you can go and talk to them.
yeah.
What about you? Do you know?
I'm doing the biodiversity major rather than the management,
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm more interested in kind fisheries.
Well, last year I didn't.
Okay.
White paper, nothing else.
That's interesting because you're going to have to work with Maori who are very involved in fisheries. So this would be very relevant.
That's one of the things.
And some of the other stuff that we talk about today. What about you?
Sometimes I'm silly.
I don't want to go down the managing endangered species side or down behaviour training side.
That's where I think they come from. Like endangered species again. And talk to the indigenous people of this land, like, so, you know, then you actually the endangered species are getting them to so you've got to respect, and also you've got all that thing where they, like in regional parks and things, and they try and they try and make it like an island, try and protect the endangered species, don't they?
Two, one of
The
other was in the city.
some of the parts up north and south.
The one in the city actually was very busy.
Trying to protect the endangered species.
I was exhausted.
So you sort of, if you're working on those, you should work with the Maori tribe, which is around there. So it would be quite necessary, that might see.
Like after this,
You don't know yet, but you just know that you're interested in natural science. Really, what did you think for long?
A good relationship with the owners of dogs.
Did you go to school this? Okay. Okay, so let's just pull this together. A couple of people have interesting career paths over here. What about on this table here? Any career paths that this might be relevant to?
If you want to teach
Oh yeah.
about animal welfare,
Mhm.
then you have to make sure to talk in a way that they understand.
Yeah. So it's again lots of people skills in the teaching
Yeah.
type of role.
Yeah,
Whatever age you're teaching, whether or not it's adults or younger people.
yeah,
Like say if you went and worked in a zoo in an educational role, you'd need to be aware of this sort of stuff. Yeah.
On that same topic, I saw a science communicator say that she learned pretty quickly not to talk down to her audience and not underestimate the intelligence
Okay.
level, because a lot of people are just like, we're not stupid. Pretty quick, but
Yeah. Because if you patronise people, they won't want to learn from you. And then they lose the experience for them, I suppose. Yeah. Did you have something? Oh no. I thought you did. Anybody else on your table? No? What about your table? I think you'd already said about dog training. Anything else?
Probably dog grooming.
Dog grooming. Okay. Yeah. So you get a very multicultural, I suppose, call it clientele coming in with their dogs,
Yeah.
which would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So I think different cultures treat animals differently, and you've got to think about that, haven't you? How would that play out in the dog world? I have no idea. But you might.
I don't know. It was quite fun. And it was easy to work with dogs, even my culture. Like we don't hate them. Just more people don't touch them.
Oh, okay. But you did, obviously.
Yeah.
You love them. You must love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, people treat pets differently around the world, don't they? Which is quite interesting. Like the way dogs are treated as pets here.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, in the UK, they're kept in the house. Pets, like dogs as pets, are kept inside the house because it's jolly cold out there. So you don't often, unless it's like a farm dog or a guard dog, they wouldn't be outside. So say in the cities like where we live, all the dogs would be kept inside. Whereas here, when I moved, I realised that people have this like little dog box in the garden, and mostly you keep your dog out there. And that was totally different
It's
for
a
me.
bit cruel to keep them inside all day.
Yeah, I know. But
Look,
people
in the
take,
country.
I know. Yeah, it would be. But like there, it's so cold.
Yeah.
At night, especially, you bring them in. But you don't get that
And
thing.
people over there don't even often have receptions and things, and they've got dogs.
I
Because
know,
the
yeah.
dogs you see walking around the city, it's like, how can you actually own a dog and live in the city?
Yeah.
And it's because, like you're saying, they live inside. We just wouldn't
Yeah.
live in an apartment or something and own that
No,
dog.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we
And so you have to sort of take them out for a walk in order to get them out. But even cats, you know, if you're in an apartment with a cat, it's hard to let them
I
out.
love it, apartment with a cat.
Do you? You let your cat out?
No.
So you've got an indoors cat.
Yeah.
That's quite unusual, isn't it?
But she get used to it.
Yeah, yeah.
She don't want to go out. She tried it once and she was so scared.
Oh. So yeah, some breeds of cats want to go further than others as well, don't they? I found out some actually like staying at home.
Yeah.
Okay, so bicultural society. So we know what we mean by bicultural society. But although New Zealand is bicultural, in that we're supposed to be about Maori and the Pākehā cultures, we are also very multicultural now. So this applies to both. Have a talk about this in your groups. If you were making a campaign about the treatment of animals and you wanted to target a teenage audience, would you target that campaign differently towards a different audience? So if you were going to target that campaign towards a city audience, would it be different to a rural audience?
Yes.
So within your groups, just discuss how it might be different if your answer is yes. And the same for if you were targeting Maori or non-Maori. So if you're talking about a teenage audience, have a quick chat in your groups.
Well, for the rural and city Maori, the rural animals are large animals. So you would have to focus on the different ways of handling the large animals. Instead of rural, so because when you get the dogs,
The exercise and the sort of dog there too, because the dogs
Can't imagine the difference between Maori and non-Maori.
energy and really dangerous.
It's like all like racist.
Back of the rubbish truck or something.
But it's also
Quite obviously you need to take them out to completely different.
for us it's sort of
You say to be sure that you know something, was our problem to steal what's in catch. Whereas rural and dogs like that would be coming from something and do it one way, so they're
Like this.
behaved completely
It's
different
not
way.
like
you'd almost have to
I'm
like
not walking around the whole
predation.
They'll figure it out soon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we always wanted to teach our dogs to go
Or
straight
not,
from
and you're going to get
it's pretty good for a walk around with people.
eventually you keep pushing them.
Oh, you're
Once
six
you
and
reach
nine people, it's just
Yeah.
over.
It's
Yeah.
moving.
So it's like
Just,
systemizing the system.
yeah, yeah.
Hunting, so
Yeah.
mentality.
I think so.
Okay, so what we think about this? What about this table over here? What did you think about this question?
We only really saw a difference with city versus rural,
Okay.
just because of the types of animals that would be around and how you approach to manage them.
Yeah? And rural people tend to be probably more farm orientated, so they're probably going to be better anyway with animals, do you think? More like exposed? Like there are people here growing up who might never leave Auckland, might never go out into the countryside, and so, you know, they might not come across animals as much. You don't go out of Auckland on holiday. Maybe if you go to the beach, you can go to Auckland beaches. How much do you come across animals? Apart from, you know, dogs and cats. It's interesting. My daughter's got a horse and she had an international girl from somewhere, I can't remember where, it might have been South Korea, this girl. She was an international student at school and she was desperate to go to see Amy's horse because she'd never seen a horse. She'd lived in a big city in South Korea, never really been out, seen a horse ever. And she was quite scared of the size of the horse, you know? And my daughter said, we've got to take her. She'd never even seen a horse. So you do get people in that. And then you've got to sort of educate them differently. What about this table? What did you come up with? Anything to add?
No, basically just what they
They said, yeah. And what about this table? Did you add anything? No?
Pretty much the same.
Okay. Okay, so there's an article. I want you're going to have to find this, these slides, which is under resources. Oh no, actually, I haven't put it there, I've just realised. Okay, I'm going to put this on the screen. So there's an article, I want you to read it. And then I want you to think, because it's an article about the environment, really, and how Maori tribes treat the environment compared to other New Zealanders. I just want us to focus for a minute on the environment. Because you're doing natural sciences, it's going to be something that is going to come up and affect you. So, actually, probably the easiest thing for you to do is just copy that, if you can, and try and open it. So if you put an awakening for that, maybe just that bit in, the title of the article, it's a really recent article, so it'll probably come up if you do a Google search. Because I had forgotten that you haven't got access to these slides yet. Because I made these slides especially for your group, the ones that are on there for the other streams, because they're not doing natural sciences, so we weren't focusing on the environment and animal management or anything in there. Okay, so have a quick look, read that article, and then in your groups try and answer those two questions. If anybody can't find it, let me know. And if you've got a bigger device and somebody's got a small device, you might want to share. I'm sorry. You should get good Wi-Fi, but that's what I'm saying. That's the article.
Okay, great.
You okay using this?
Yeah. Sorry.
The second one.
Oh, just type the link in your
You'll find it okay. You just put that in the documents, to be honest, it's a very recent article.
This one's pink colour. I'll get that next. We gotta go Canada if we can. It's so funny. Yeah, it's funny, man. Yeah. I think I've seen it. I think, yeah, it's here.
groups, you've probably read enough of that article. So see if you can answer, or just start, it's just a starting place for you to start thinking about these questions. So in your group, see if you can discuss the questions. It doesn't matter if you haven't read the entire article. I'm sure you get the hang of it. It's just one I found this week, which I thought was quite interesting. How far did you get through the article? You haven't started?
No.
What about you?
You already finished it.
And you? So, I think it was quite interesting to open up this whole thing about how married people are as opposed to yeah, yeah.
Three, and it's like, I'll just give it one.
It's much more.
It's in time of the moment, they have huge conflicts, especially science research and stuff like that. So they don't have a say. Like if someone puts a grant forward towards the government, I want to research that. You get a say in like, if this grant is cheap, these people can do so many research and say, like, it's essentially
So they should be consulted.
they should be consulted.
Like human rights. Someone reserves that about some animal sanctuaries. Try and do this apparently the time period to the endangered species. Yeah, sometimes I've got them on just when they land on islands, haven't they?
Like a conservation, like in Gisborne, there's a couple of villages down there, you just go and read to the end of it, it's all just like, yeah. I know it's mainly you know where to go and then you know where to take in the seafood out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just in random places like that because it's just a
Yeah. Just one up north and then how often are we read that?
Yeah.
Something like Takana.
Oh,
They've done the same sort of thing because it's like monitoring and stuff.
Yeah.
So they've got this like huge fence that goes quite far. And so the idea is to keep it just out. It's just up town, it's up near, yeah.
There's the Lee Marine Reserve as well.
Oh yeah, there's one there, there's Thailand.
Yeah, go to ones with
So it's quite important that Maori consult very sort of stuff. I imagine that all these sorts of courses that you might end up in that sort of pathway.
It was funny, that seems to be the Science and Society.
Maybe you to the same course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the thing was, it wasn't assessed. It was like it had nothing to do with any nautical premise. It was like show and lot, learn about nautical different foods. But like, so she came in and she would teach about nautical culture and like, you know, struggle to get tigers living there. And they were even there because like, ultimately finished, you're going to end up with work in this country, you're going to deal with like, this whole subject, definitely. They didn't assess any of it, so yeah, so it was just like chucking slide at you and she was pointing at you. There was no real, there was reason to learn it, but at least I'm like,
Have you learned that from
yeah, yeah, so that,
because it is simple.
yeah, so it was kind of like, half-assed. Yes, I would learn. I think a lot of the past I get the sense of like, the tie to the land, you know, like still thinking when like a word in the right person as well. They were like, why is she teaching this? Why is this even important?
I guess a lot of people do, I don't know, like people who are new to it,
Yeah.
which is wrong because it is. But a lot of people who have to do this.
What sort of
Brands and things like that. We just, because of what we're doing, we want to mention that something everybody is interested in, because we also like animals, like trees, so it's part of who we are, but other people, we just sit in their little box and then have to deal with it, and it's not part of it, so it is, and like you said, it's so quiet. I was very passionate about it. That whole environment thing. Do so much. Yeah. Yeah. To work in the city every day and it's not part of your daily life. So
we had that experience. I was up in one of the girls with my cat project. There's the amount of people who are like, I don't care about you guys.
it's kind of
What? Country. It's the only animal we have here.
you can't believe that people live like that
Yeah.
and don't engage in it.
One of my favourite books, like, was on this character.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
She had like a Maori character in the relationship. Purchasing land and everything, so you can understand why we do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a really interesting conversation over here. Your two groups have gone a bit quiet. So you may know a lot about this, you may not. Coming from it from a UK perspective, the way I see it is that Maori people here have a really great respect for the environment, and the way they uphold it, it means that, and the way it means that all the time you've got to be negotiating on how land is used and how water is used and all these resources are used and how animals are looked after, endangered species and things like that. And so you've got to be more aware. There's like an extra awareness because of that. It's like brings it to the forefront of the conversation, which is a good thing, I think. But it does mean that you've got to have complex conversations and you've got to be aware of other cultures which you may not have much awareness of yourself. You've got to become aware if you're going to have those conversations. I suppose if you're working in the environment, which you might end up doing, this is going to become something you have to do. Would you two like to just open up what you were just talking about, because it was interesting? Go on.
Where do we start?
You started, so you start and then...
I can't remember what we were talking about.
No,
You were talking about a cat. Someone... Oh no, okay. About a girl who wasn't interested in New Zealand birds.
Oh no, we had so many people say that. So over summer we worked with a girl, a few of us worked with a girl who was doing a cat project and talking about predation and are people worried about native or non-native species being hunted. And so many people just said, we don't really care about birds in New Zealand. It's like, but that's the only animal we have here, which is pretty much before we came along and introduced heaps of species.
Yeah.
That's the one animal that was pretty much present, and then they're like, we don't care.
Yeah.
We don't care if they hunt anything.
Yeah.
And it was, it's super common.
Yeah, very common. Very common. And then you were saying that people are either extreme about the environment or completely opposite.
I mean, I guess everyone in here would have an interest in it, but there would be people who it's not part of their lives, and so you get people who are really passionate about it, and the ones that are sort of in the city leave the city, and it's just sort of something they hear about, but
yeah, it doesn't really affect.
It doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
So you've always such a big clash of cultures and things in New Zealand, because people don't respect it, and Maoris do respect it obviously very much. And
interesting.
But
because it's about education, isn't it, of people like that. Very much about, and the more we can educate people about how important it is to preserve these species, but how do you do that without alienating people and switching them off? You can't swamp people or saturate people with information, else they will switch off if they're not interested. Anything to add from the other two tables about this particular article? I thought it was quite interesting coming to it from my perspective, that I'm only just learning about all this. I've been in New Zealand 14 years, I'm still learning. And I'm sure I'll be learning forever. I've got a long way to go. But very interesting the way the environment and land are seen and viewed. And so that article, I really liked that article when I read it earlier this week. I thought it would connect. Okay, so we've done cultural safety. Another one of the topics that will come up in that module is situating knowledge according to context. there's a whole topic that you can explore in more detail there. But what we need to think about is, if you're trying to communicate something, you've got to think about the context in which people live in order to communicate effectively. So if you're in advertising or if you're in any sort of promotion of information, you've got to always think about your audience. It's really obvious, which is what we were just saying. Like, if you need to educate people, you need to make sure that you're targeting the right audience. How are you going to do that so that you don't turn them off from any more information about it at all? So, if you were having to target information about a marine reserve to tourists, would you word it differently? Would you target it differently to if you were just talking to local people? And the next question is, and we touched on this slightly when we were talking about dogs earlier, are there any religions or cultures you know of which afford special status to any animals? And how might that affect the way you communicate with that person? So again, in your groups, have a short conversation about this. If there's anything you can add, if there's any knowledge that you've got about any of these topics, just talk to the people in your group.
But if you see this with you could be like, this is going somewhere, just directly, this is your backyard. You really got to let
a couple of years ago just there. And because
with locals, you can work with
so and just kind of things that
feel like they have to do something to use the same point.
But then you got into see what you're doing.
no-go area.
Whereas I used to live right near one, and sort of part of the beach was like on the border of it, Harbour, but they had all these permits saying this is your limit, if you go over this limit, it's
Yeah.
that's people and the locals, who live right there, so
Yeah.
and then we go across the road.
That would be very similar to what I was talking about. There's down there, it's just end of the beach, the knowledge of this area.
But yeah, definitely that was much more local focus. Whereas when we went to it was much more Asian.
Did you also say like the methods
Yeah,
as well?
Gogon's way different. Yeah,
If they were to go for us,
just part of the beach, like, there was signage and we got
pictures,
go to one of these.
the tourist might not have any knowledge of what you're
But
trying
also
to
I
tell
noticed some of
them.
the
Say you
one of
want
the tourists
to make sure that you're not allowed pictures of the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because it might be native to New Zealand, they might not know they're not pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So really
But, that's
Something that
normal
will be
New
named.
Zealand.
The thing is, the marine reserves are
Yeah.
so pretty.
Yeah.
They always look tidy and clean and everything. They do make you want to hear.
I don't know.
Religious or cultures, you know.
If you like to parcel size, then you're only allowed to take
Was
part
this
in
kind
a
of
certain size, where some
one of my
people
friends
that
is
parts will just take whatever it comes across. If you don't know, you're only allowed to take short of it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was so different. He said it was so different. He had to
Ashton areas.
his culture.
Are there any religions or cultures you know of which
Yeah.
afford special status to
Yeah,
them?
he just said, I just
Watch
started.
you on TV sometime.
We used to like on Korea and it would with barbecues and things.
It does. Yeah.
And so if we have a barbecue, you have to make sure that they're eating, you know, utensils. So But
Yeah,
everyone
and
just
they
does.
just
I
have
don't, yeah,
people
except
were
for
praying and
Yeah.
the rest
Everyone was
all
singing,
there,
yeah,
and
it's
then
like-
we
it's
weren't allowed to
I
feed
feel
the
it's
rest.
reasonably
Because that was the typical
shops
around
God
God
and
and it's just a,
But now it's like
the temptation just be like
Actually, really
really
bad,
bad.
that it was just like, as I'm making contract have, like, here we can find it everywhere, hello. Like, even, yeah, I can eat it as hello, like, it's really good, you know? It's not something as hello, everywhere in the
Yeah.
world have it.
Okay.
So,
I think it's because we export so much of our meat. We
Yeah.
realised that if we did it halal,
yeah.
and then it just became normal practice.
Yeah.
Not really like so
Jewish
yeah,
some
obviously.
yeah. dead on.
It's because we
Is that because they're classified as
And people here are very honest, like, if I went to a restaurant,
So
Yeah.
if they one of the just have to next to pig, for example.
they don't have to say it, but they say it. So they're very honest. And that's why eating at my family was feel comfortable saying it. Like, if the restaurant say it's halal, we will eat it. Even if it's not Arabic restaurant, it's halal. That's okay if it say it's halal, because we trusted them. They can lie, but.
Well, yeah, you wonder what restaurants people just wouldn't why because if it got out that it wasn't being, you know, with Facebook and social media and everything nowadays, they would just be.
What about your group? What did you come up with for the second question?
For the second
And you
one,
guys-
so
we
Indians
don't worry
worship
about-
cows,
Yeah.
so come to New Zealand,
And
it's
if
pretty
we
weird
want
that
to
we've got
travel
that.
along-
Yeah. Not all Indians, certain religions.
Yeah.
I think it might be Hindus.
So they have
I'm just on that conversation with my husband.
I tried to,
That would be really good.
Easter holiday, they have to use
But then it's coming in, like you say, we've got this huge dairy market, agriculture is huge, like a massive money earner for New Zealand.
And
So that was the Australian just making money out of cows. To go against what they pay.
like 3
Just like in the wall.
What do you think of
I
that?
was like, my father starts laughing at my
We
face.
would say
Like,
the
there's no Muslims.
marine reserve
Yeah.
or the tourist, you would have more of a
I think
like
like
a more educational approach. You would really
Canada,
not push the idea of a marine
my sister
reserve, but
used to live there.
it would be more
But we didn't have really like as much as we have here. Like when she was also
but it would be more accessible, like you would have food brochures and stuff, and signs actually at your reserve telling you.
Yeah. So that I think someone might see that maybe New Zealand was not really So you,
And it's
the marketing would be
very
different if you're involved in that sort of exercise. You'd have to
I
be
think there
careful
was
about
some
your audience,
controversy for
target
some of
audience.
it.
Okay, interesting conversations coming up. You've got anything to ask about it?
Oh, we did sort of talk about how some areas, if it's for the locals, it can be a bit more like warning signs. So it's a bit more like targeted at not focused.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like we were talking about Goat Island, it's a bit more touristy, so it's more information based.
Yeah.
What's going on.
Yeah, I think the other two groups came up with similar things about whether or not you're educating, informing, or warning. Those signs are going to be all different. You might have big pictures, realistic pictures of what the wildlife there is, so that people can identify it, particularly non-New Zealanders, who, especially natives. They won't know any of these native species necessarily. Okay, so and this is sort of fairly obvious stuff, but if you're, you might end up in a job where you've got to consider this sort of stuff. Who's your audience here? There's an article about the treatment of cows, which we talked about on that table, because in India, Hindus and Muslims actually argue about this because they treat cows differently according to what they believe in their religions, and it's causing a lot of conflict there. So if you go to the BBC World News site, there was an article on there yesterday about this. See if you can find it. Or just copy that particular thing in. Have a quick read of that.
Yes.
I saw you using that earlier, so I thought maybe that wasn't. It's in yesterday's news. So I was just googling this yesterday to try and put in cows in the moon. I've done that in the UK. Has anybody found it yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it is still there.
Yeah, that's what I did, and it took me to
this. Maybe Indian cows or something like that, I don't know. Or just like the membrane, but is it there?
what was the thing?
I see some 5 minutes away from that. Other people found it, but it took some good more fun. finished reading it, have a think about the question at the bottom. If you're waiting for the people in your group to finish reading, then just have a think about it on your own for a second or two. Find it.
Yeah, please.
I'll just read the first two or three paragraphs, that'll be enough to get an idea.
What's the title?
Okay, now you should have read enough of that article by now to have a little conversation in your groups about this. It carries on from what we were just talking about. So I'll give you 2 minutes to have a quick conversation about it. You don't need to have read the whole article to have the conversation. Some people will have done, some people won't. Can you think of any other examples of this sort of thing?
Could maybe flip it around the other way compared to how some countries overseas they eat dogs and stuff. And we think that's just totally crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it is.
Just the other way around.
Yeah, because one of them was talking about how in India, she was reading that there was a 10-year-old to rats, and they didn't know that. So they actually reveal the rats, or let the rats run all over the temple. Well, that would be really ridiculous with this film there. So it's sort of things happen a lot, so just not necessarily aware of it unless we've travelled somewhere or we've seen it happen. If we've stayed in the same thing like that, or we don't travel to anybody to different sort of different countries outside the West.
Yeah, my friend, he came back from India in the holidays, and he was saying that they've actually banned beef now, and I don't know his religion, but he can't eat pork, and so that only left him with chicken or buffalo beef. And he was saying buffalo beef is horrible.
I mean, seriously,
Yeah, so that's what the article was about, wasn't it?
Yeah, he said it was quite like recent, and he was complaining because he had a whole like 4 months of just eating chicken.
And also the conflict price of chicken, if it was in demand, so it's not expensive. But yeah, they get it all over us. We don't Okay, any examples apart from the ones that we've already talked about, like the cow? Any other examples of how different cultures or religions treat animals, wildlife, different they may be to us around the world or in New Zealand? Any ideas?
Oh, yeah, about pigs.
Yeah.
Like, it's not Muslims, we cannot eat pigs,
Okay.
and we don't even raise them back in my country. So yeah, it's different from you guys.
And why is that? Can you tell us, explain it?
It's in our religion, like we're not allowed to eat it.
Is it because it's considered unclean?
Yeah.
Pigs? Okay.
It's
So-
not healthy and it's not clean.
So would you find it offensive that other people do, or do you just accept that?
No, that's
It's
okay.
just that you don't. Okay. That's good. Any other examples from this table, maybe? Have you got any extra, anything to add? You had a good example, one of you two, what was it you were saying? You had a good example about, what was it about?
Dogs.
Dogs, yeah. Tell us that one.
Some overseas countries, they eat dogs, which we think is pretty crazy.
Yeah. So whereas we keep them as pets and feed them nice food and take them on walks, and in some countries they eat them. And we would find it weird if that was on the menu in the cafe.
Disgusting.
So yeah.
Or recently what Japan did with the whales. They killed 300 whales in 3 months.
Yeah. So even that treatment of whales thing, and Japan going against the whole, what's it called?
I can't remember what it's called.
It's like a law, isn't it?
IWF, International Whale
Yeah.
Federation.
Yeah, and Japan keeps breaking the quota, or they're not allowed to kill any, and they do, or
They have a quota for research,
oh, that's right.
and it's been shown to turn up in supermarket shelves.
Ah,
I actually know the people who did the research.
oh, okay. Yeah,
So that's the problem, and the accusation still stands.
yeah,
And they just say it's research.
yeah. I have. I read a bit about it a few years ago. It was in the press, but I haven't read about it more recently. You're obviously more up to date with it than I am. Okay, another topic that comes up in this module is about audiences and messages of truth. So it's about what you believe when you read or hear things in the press. And this is about the refugee crisis at the moment. Someone put all these together. So we see lots of images at the moment of refugees on the news. And it's even news here in New Zealand where the government are having to reconsider the refugee quotas, and all Western governments having to do that. So we might see this sort of image about where the people are fleeing from, and then we see graffiti like this in places, big cities in Europe. There would be a lot of antagonistic sort of attitudes towards refugees, and then underneath on this sort of public information poster, it says he would if he could. This one's really hard to read from over there. But it's actually like a billboard on the side of a truck, and it says, "In the UK illegally?" ? Text home, and basically go home, or face arrest. But you can't read it there; it's really hard to read. I'm going to complain about this because it's really hopeless. The screen's really not very good.
I don't think you'll get any change with that screen because it's actually an inbuilt live
Yeah.
screen.
But if that one doesn't come down anymore.
Well, that doesn't point at that screen anyway.
Oh, okay. So it's just really not very good for
The
slides.
problem's probably the bulbs getting a bit worn out, but they don't replace them. It's just they replace them when they reach their nominal.
Yeah,
end of
they
life.
do. Yeah,
We've
it's
got a
really.
worse one upstairs in 2005. What do you guys think? Is it bad? The one in 2005?
I think we turn all the lights off.
Oh
I
yeah.
find it really hard to view some of these screens.
Yeah, I find them. This one's really not very good. If you're sitting back there, it's not good at all. If you're way at the back, it would be hopeless. So anyway, just the way we receive information all the time about the refugee crisis at the moment has an effect on us. It can be that we feel overloaded and bombarded by the images that we see, and then we just switch off. What do you think about all the news that you read about refugees? It's been in the news for the last 6 months, probably every week.
Donald Trump isn't helping.
No, Donald Trump makes it more controversial. Interesting, maybe he polarises reactions as well by things like that, so controversial. But no, it's not helping. What do you think?
With Donald Trump, I kind of just want to kick him in the shin. Half the stuff he says, it's just like, I would do more, but just kick him in the shin now.
Yeah, I read something today about how he'd made some sort of, there was some meme going around about Donald Trump saying something outrageous for April Fool's Day, but it was just a meme. But you'd never be able to tell the difference, would you?
No,
Because everything he says is so outrageous. And I thought, how do they know it's a meme? So anyway.
Between the States and Mexico, I was like,
Yeah.
no.
No.
Yeah. So the treatment of refugees is very controversial at the moment because all the governments have to debate it, people have big opinions for or against, and forget that they're talking about individual people. And you could come across refugees. There could be some students here at Unitec who are refugees. I've certainly met some. Yeah. In the past I've met some, and they've been through absolute trauma to get here. And it's really hard for them because they know they can't ever go back. And so it's probably much harder to settle than it is for an immigrant who has chosen to come. But even that's hard, I tell you, because I've done it. So, thinking about this, I just tried to put some other images that are perhaps a bit more relevant to your pathway together. We see this sort of thing as well a lot. There's a lot of stuff going around about how plastic in our oceans is ending up on all the beaches around the world. And sometimes you see pictures of these beaches that are totally ruined, depending on the tidal patterns. All this plastic has ended up, and then how all the wildlife are ingesting the plastic. Have you seen those images? They're just awful, of birds and things with their stomachs full of plastic. And then things like this in the Great Barrier Reef and other oceans around the world. Sophia, have you got anything to add to this?
Some of our students have done third-year projects investigating rubbish and in seabirds and in the diet of sea animals.
So
and we see this evidence here, it's happening in New Zealand.
That's right,
It's not just an overseas problem, it's happening here, it's a local issue too.
Yeah.
So that's quite an interesting point.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of images about it now, but we're only just becoming more aware of it over the last couple of years, and that now it hits the news. I'm not sure whether or not that's because of social media and photos get passed around more, and people get shocked by what they see. Maybe these National Geographic photographers go out and take these photos and put them out there, I don't know, but I think I'm more aware than I was about litter.
Yeah, we call that citizen science, and one of the problems is a lot of it's just random bits of information, and your challenge as developing scientists is actually to formulate methods to collect data that actually shows a trend and demonstrates a problem, because until you do that, the authorities are just going to say, oh, no one's published anything about it yet, we don't think there's a problem. I mean, sometimes councils can afford to commission research, but very often it's just limited scope, and the quality of what you do in your careers is going to be really important for this kind of problem, exactly this kind of problem.
Yeah, I think it's going to get bigger and bigger.
Starting with this module.
Yeah, I think the whole treatment of the environment is going to get more and more important, and this sort of thing is going to be important. So how do we convey this information to other people, and think about your audience all the time? So when you get to that topic, maybe if you want to, you can come to it from that angle. Consider it from this, from something that's more relevant to you than the previous one that I've got on, which was about refugees. Just go back one slide. Okay, so if you ended up, I'm not sure what you're going to work in long term. We sort of discussed it earlier. But say if you ended up with a customer or a client who was a refugee, do you feel as though any personal biases you have would affect the way you treated them as a customer or client? Maybe you had to deal with a team of people who are all working on the same project as you. How would that make you feel? How could you make that person feel culturally safe in New Zealand, rather than them feeling other and an outsider, which I think it is very easy to do when you come in to a new country? How would you make them feel culturally safe? And the way you treat them as a professional is going to be really important. So how you are as a person, as an individual outside work is different. You do have a professional persona, and you're starting to develop that now you're on a degree course, and it will go on throughout your lives. So you have to become more and more aware of this stuff. I've become more aware of the way I teach here because I used to teach in the UK, and how you teach there is different, and I've had to change. I'm still changing. I'm still becoming more aware of things that I might do differently here. So I'm still learning, and I've been teaching for years, but I'm still learning. And learning how to relate to people here is different. One of the things I used to do, because I taught, like if I was standing up like this all afternoon, I would probably just sit on the table because I'm chatting to you and I don't need to be standing up all the time. It feels a bit formal to stand up, so I might just sit on the table and chat. And I learned very quickly that that's quite offensive here, so I stopped doing it. Why is it offensive to sit on the table here? Anybody know?
Part of the Māori culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we would.
Yeah, because the Māori culture would be that they might eat off that table, so it would be offensive to sit on it. So I stopped doing it. But to begin with, I probably did it a couple of times before I knew, when I was new over here. So things like that, you know, you can just change your behaviour to make what you're doing more acceptable. You don't want to alienate the people you're talking to by doing something quite unconsciously. Like, it wasn't until I was made aware of it that I stopped doing it. Because you can offend unconsciously, can't you? But what we want to do is try and make ourselves more aware of other cultures so that we don't offend, because then we alienate people. And whatever you're trying to do, whether or not you're educating them about the environment or teaching them about marine reserves or whatever, if you're dealing with the public, you don't want to offend before you've even begun your job. So that's what all of these slides are really about. So that we can work with other people and have more successful outcomes, whatever our outcomes might be. Okay, so you're going to go away, you're going to start module 2, and when you come across 4 of the topics, we'll have already started to talk about them, so you've had an introduction to those 4 today. Okay, it's important that you do at least 2 topics a week. Aim for that, so that you're not doing it all at the last minute. Post your stuff onto my portfolio, share it with your group, then you start getting feedback straight away from your course facilitator, and that's me, and also from each other. And that helps you to know whether or not you're on the right track, or if you're putting enough stuff up there and stuff like that. Okay, any questions? You all feel confident about going off and starting module 2 now, I hope. That's great. Okay, so you know where to find the resources. I'll put these slides on today under resources as well. Okay. And next week BBC, and the week after back in this room at the same time. So next week BBC 8:30, and it will be me delivering it, so you'll see me online. Okay. Great.
Has everyone done it?
Pardon?
Has everyone done it?
No, well, the first one will be next week.
Oh, this is the first one?
Because otherwise it
Because
was...
they weren't live on the
Yeah, because last week it was Good Friday, so they didn't actually do it live. So we'll all meet at the same time. That's how it goes next week. See you. Thanks for joining in. Your contributions were great. I haven't got a clue how to turn this thing off.